Regarding staff use of e-portfolio for CPD, there is no formal institutional commitment to this. Staff have been introduced to the e-portfolio so they can actually use it for their own CPD, and quite a lot of the staff who are aligned to professionals bodies, for example physios, occupational therapists, nurses, counsellors, they use the e-portfolio because then it links to their accreditation for their particular professional body. So they will use it for CPD. Some staff are also studying to do PhDs, and they will use the e-portfolio as part of their PDP, as part of their studies.
The kind of things that colleagues are recording and developing are obviously things like pivotal incident analysis, where things have happened within their teaching and delivery that's been important for them to reflect on, and might have identified some development needs that they can feed into their staff development plans. Staff are also, on an ongoing basis, developing their HPC profiles that we may be audited by the Health Professions Council from 2010. So staff are busily compiling those just in case we're required to submit those for CPD. One of the nice things about using PebblePad for ePortfolio was that we've actually been able to develop some of these and test them, and actually set up a gateway by which we could submit them to HPC, which they thought was a really good way of doing that. So we've actually test-driven that aspect of it. Peer assessment and review, as a radiotherapy and oncology team, we're all now documenting that process as part of our CPD, and importantly for the people who are doing the peer assessment, they get permission to copy it as well, so they can utilise it in their CPD portfolios as evidence of that activity as well, and not just the person being reviewed. Staff appraisal is something that people are starting to document and record using PebblePad as well. I piloted that last year on behalf of the cost team, and that seemed to go quite well, and 2 or 3 people are interested in taking that forward this year, so we'll see how that goes.
Within the Flourish project, we actually looked at 5 areas of activity that we thought any portfolio would be useful for, and they are for supporting professional accreditation with professional bodies, so being able to gather evidence within your e-portfolio and use this to remain either registered or accredited with the professional body. We're also looking at it for recording learning, reflecting upon learning within our postgraduate certificate in learning and teaching in higher education that is run here at the University of Cumbria for all new staff with less than 3 years teaching experience in HE. We also are using it to record learning gained at conferences and then sharing this with colleagues. We hoped that this would also be part of the team building area of activity that we thought the portfolio would be useful for. We're a newly formed university and we have campuses many miles apart, so we were looking to use the portfolio as a way of introducing one another to new colleagues. And finally, we're looking at it to support the annual appraisal process. And thinking that this was a good tool for gathering evidence and then demonstrating that you've actually met some of the objectives that were set the previous year.
So some of the possible ways we're thinking about using the portfolio for CPD, things like initial assessment for new members of staff, using the profile tool for example, some planning and setting goals from the outset, again those are for new members of staff, tracking any activity related to those goals, possibly evaluation of any training they go on, internal and external, having a preset pro forma for them to complete at the end of a training activity. Their annual review, our appraisal process called Performance Development Review. We'd like to think staff could record evidence throughout the year and bring it all together and share it with their line manager at appraisal. We'd also like staff to record the personal journey, any critical incidents, any critical friendships that they form whilst at the university, and also the peer observation of learning and teaching, which is our academic observation process. We'd also like to think staff could use it to record and reflect any activities for education, training and skills purposes, possibly again on our postgraduate certificate for academic praxis. We'd also like staff to possibly record and share their attendance and experiences at conferences and events, so to return back to the institution with whatever they've gained from an event and feed that back into some sort of central repository so other staff can see who's been to what conference and what they gain from it, and hopefully make contact if it's something that they're interested in. Also, possibly for professional accreditation, some members of staff are already using it for certain professional bodies, and would like to possibly extend that if some professional bodies are willing to accept PebblePad or e-portfolios as a method of recording evidence. And to have some sort of consistency and collation of staff CVs, so we had a consistent format that staff could keep updated in an e-portfolio account and have some sort of central way of recording that.
I mean, we're still in quite early days in terms of using e-portfolios for CPD, but in terms of staff, we've looked at a number of different things. We looked at appraisals, but that's been very localised. One of our biggest rollouts at the moment is in NVQs, and that's to compile the portfolio of evidence for NVQ qualifications. We're also using it on a management certificate for staff, and we're also rolling out a programme called ADEPT, which is a whole university staff development programme which is all online materials, and we're using the e-portfolio for that. Also at undergraduate and postgraduate student level, we've got a number of courses that are using it for their professional development. Physiotherapy the professional body for physiotherapy use the same system that we have at university, so they're going to be using it for their registration process. Our pharmacy students have started using e-portfolio to evidence against their professional standards, and our midwifery students have been using it for a number of years for professional development and providing evidence for professional development.